Boa tarde, Lisboa. Good afternoon, Lisbon. Fantastic to be here. Already been a couple of firsts for me in this fantastic conference this morning. The first is that I've realized that I can talk to you and get my 10,000 steps in at the same time. I don't think I've ever been on such a large stage. The second thing is that they say that AI is very good at spotting patterns. I spotted a pattern in my public speaking career many years ago without the use of AI, and that is that I'm almost always put on immediately after lunch. And we call that in the UK the graveyard slot. I don't know whether it translates very well into Portuguese, but you're all full of lunch and you're ready for a siesta, no doubt. And so it is my challenge, which I accept with fair degree of confidence, to keep you awake. And what better than space travel to do that? So let's go to space. If the ticket price was not a problem, and you are comfortable with the level of safety, how many people would like to blast off from the Earth's planet through our blue atmosphere into the black skies of space, hang weightless in a spaceship and look down at our beautiful planet? How many people would like to do that? Okay. Now we have a very sophisticated observation camera up there, which is powered by AI, and I can now tell you that most people want to go. And that's very good for our industry. But most businesses have a vision, and they have challenges in order to achieve that vision. Hopefully, they've got a strong purpose, which everybody buys into. And there are meetings that happen all the time, which says, "Okay, this is our next big challenge." I want to give you one that must have happened at a space company in the United States a few years ago, which I think will put all our challenges in some sort of proportion. And that challenge went something like this. Guys, we're going to build the world's biggest ever spaceship. We need to do that in order to get as many people or as much payload on board as possible. We need to have a spaceship which can be used many, many, many times, so it's got to be reusable, because that's going to really get the costs down and transform access to space for all the great things that we can do there. Unfortunately, because it's so big, it's got a massive rocket, which will take it up to maybe 250,000 feet, which then we dispense with. But we have to be able to use it. So your challenge this week is you need to catch that rocket on the way down. It weighs about 200 tons. It's going to be traveling at supersonic speeds. It's about the length of a 747. So what I suggest is you think about a tower, which is perhaps the size of the Statue of Liberty, and maybe put a couple of chopsticks on the front and see whether you can catch this thing on the way down. So I don't know what the mood in that meeting was like, but nevertheless, they accepted it. And if my click works, you'll see what happened. Got it first time. That was obviously SpaceX. Well done, SpaceX, for that. An amazing achievement. We're talking today about building the future. And building the future sort of means that I think we all accept and know that the future won't only be different, but it needs to be different. And that means discovery. And the great thing is that as a species, discovery is probably one of the most exhilarating things that we can do. It's seductively exhilarating, I would say, and it's energizing. We have always been driven by curiosity, delighted by surprise, and our questioning is as relentless as our search for answers. And in that way, we are all explorers. And of course, we stand on the shoulders of giants, and there have been ages where there have been a period of great discoveries, and there have been individuals that throw up as the great discoverers, the great explorers. And they are our heroes, because I think they are sort of who we all want to be, and most of us are not quite to that extent. And the fact that we're in Lisbon today in Portugal meant that we had to at least put this guy's face up. I'm sure you all know who he is, or some of you will. Ferdinand Magellan was one of those great explorers. At the beginning of the 16th century, he set out on a 3-year voyage. He didn't actually make it back, and nor did most people. I think 1 out of 5 ships and 18 out of 270 people returned. He lost his life on the way, but that incredible voyage of exploration proved for those that still doubted it that the world was indeed round. He set off from the west and he came back from the east. It measured the circumference of the Earth, and it smashed, of course, all the high sea duration records. They really understood what they needed in order to be on the high seas for long periods of time. And it also, of course, really started that incredible road to intraplanetary connectivity that we now enjoy and take for granted today. I think when I listen to what's going on today, for people who know a lot more about AI than I do, that the modern day Ferdinands and Buzzes and Neils may be setting sail to cross intellectual rather than physical frontiers, but I believe that the results of their journeys promise to be every much as spectacularly profound on just about every aspect of human existence. So one of the things that I'm not an expert on AI, space is my thing, but the two are very, I think, closely connected, and we'll talk about that more in a moment. But one of the things that I have picked up is that it is, in some ways, the applications, the products that are bolted onto the AI models, which is what changes lives. It's what the products that are designed to solve specific problems or do specific tasks, sitting on this wealth of data and intelligence that makes the difference. And that is really a perfect segue into commercial space, because we are at the dawn of a new commercial space age. It's an age characterized not by government agencies, but private companies that are building and operating a new generation of launch vehicles. And they, if you like, are the platforms, the models. And those new launch vehicles are able to get into space and back much more frequently and much more cheaply and much more reliably. So they're transformational as far as that's concerned. And because of that, they are opening up new applications and new markets, which we'll talk about in a moment. And that combination of having the right platform and the right verticals is what's going to transform our business and personal lives when it comes to space travel. And I'm proud to say, of course, that they have also gone to space in Virgin spaceship Unity, which is what I'm obviously probably most proud about, having been a big part of that journey for many years. I had a great privilege, as it said in the introduction, to being the first employee at Virgin Galactic, and what I want to do is just tell you a little bit about that story. I actually stepped down from full-time work there a couple of years ago, having done 2 important things. The first, it's always important to allow the boss to experience the product, and thank God we got there after a very long time. The other thing is that you know what it's like as startups, and particularly space startups. There is incredible correlation between your ability to fund the project and success of that project. And so we were able to list Virgin Galactic on the New York Stock Exchange, the first human spaceflight company to do that. So that seemed a good time to let other people take some of the reins, although I'm delighted still to be part of the Virgin family in other capacities. And he said, the reason that we want to do it, the purpose of this company, and that's the other thing that we always try to think about when we start new companies, what is its impact on the community, how we can deliver a positive impact on community and to the planet and to the wider world. And he said, look, even back in 2004, we knew we had some really significant problems to solve down here on our only planet, and unfortunately, even though AI wasn't around at that time, there's no silver bullet. There's no single button you can press to solve those challenges. But he said space really matters. And already, of course, even before the second space age really started, our lives were fundamentally improved by GPS and weather forecasting and all sorts of applications that were starting to be unveiled by having this access to the world outside our world. And I think that if you were to get Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and Richard Branson in the same room. I mean, you never quite know what Elon Musk is going to say today, but I think if you ask them, what the space legacy was all about for them, I think they would probably agree that what they want to do is to transform what is a really narrow pathway from the Earth to space into a broad highway so that it becomes accessible to everybody because it is an incredible resource. So I said, okay, we have a purpose, we have a market, we think. What's holding us up? And he said, well, what's holding us up is the technology. And this goes back to 2004, Soyuz rockets. That was Yuri Gagarin and a more recent one. But you can see, even if you're not a rocket scientist, that things have not changed much. And that typically tends to be the case when governments and government employees and agencies are looking after things, that actually they do an incredible amount of research work and development work to get the basic product up and running. It then comes to the private sector to say, okay, we're standing on the shoulders of giants, but now let's really make it work for the consumer. And so I said, that's good. And he said, and we think we've found a new system which can do this. And he said, and so I think that I would sum up our conversation and our cup of tea is that together we're going to try and open space to change the world for good. And we were partly reliant on this guy, a man by the name of Burt Rutan, who designed our prototype technology for us. And I do sort of wonder, actually, there was no AI, around at that time. Burt was the next best thing. He was a very bright guy, thought about things in a different way. That if you'd fed into, one of the AI models that just to, build me the safest, most cost-efficient, whatever way to get to space, what they would have come up with. Maybe it would have been something like Burt, maybe it wouldn't. But he came up with a system which we really loved because we felt that it had the potential to keep people really safe, it had the potential to give them incredible experience, and it had the potential to be operated on a commercially viable basis. And those three things were revolutionary when it came to human spaceflight. I would love to give you a lot of examples of his innovation. I'll just give you one. When you come back from space, you tend to be traveling extremely fast from nothing into something, from the vacuum of space into the atmosphere. And it's a bit like diving into the pool. If you get it right, it's fine. If you don't, it's a bit of a mess. And so he really put his mind to this because he said, I don't want to rely on computers. I don't want to rely on pilots. I want to somehow rely on the laws of nature to get me back every time in a completely predictable way. And with a spaceship that can be used multiple times. Now, what I'm going to do, just for, because I'm really running out of time here, is just to tell you very quickly what it's going to be like to fly. So you're going to train for 5 days. You're going to be absolutely ready to go, and you're going to turn up to the spaceport with your fellow crew and your pilots early in the morning, and you're going to get a runway takeoff. And that's great because it's familiar, because a lot of this is about sensory overload. The first bit isn't. You're then going to circle up to about 45,000 feet, and you're going to be anticipating and rehearsing, doing whatever you want to get ready for this incredible transformational ride. And at about 45,000 feet, when everything is go from mission control and the pilots, they'll turn around and say, is everybody ready? You will have been trained to say yes at that point. So you'll do a thumbs up. The spaceship is released from the aircraft, goes into a glide, be a little falling, feeling like a roller coaster on your stomach at that point. But very quickly, the rocket motor behind your head will light up. You will be pressed back by about 3.5 Gs into your seat. The 0 to 60 time, which is not really a very aeronautical thing, is about a second. You'll be at the speed of sound in under 10 seconds. Once you're through that transonic into supersonic, the pilots will pull the nose into a vertical climb, and off you go. Once you get into space, there'll be an opportunity. There is an opportunity. Don't need to say where will be anymore. There's an opportunity to take your seatbelt off, obviously to experience the joys of zero gravity. But I think what most people want to do is to get to the window as quickly as possible, because the overview effect, check out the YouTube video, has been known and appreciated by astronauts for a long time. Professional astronauts went to space to do an important job, but they all looked out of the window, and what they saw changed them forever. And they talked about that experience in those flights, not for a few weeks or months, but for the rest of their lives. You look down on this planet and you recognize that we are all in this together. So let me just finish with a few thoughts on what AI can bring to space, what space can bring to AI, and then just a couple of words on the future of human spaceflight. So firstly, space is hard, space is expensive, space is dangerous, and I would say space is urgent. And those four criteria, I think make AI the perfect bedfellow, if you like, for space exploration. Because through just programming and maths, through 3D printing and material technology, through getting more bangs for the bucks from each of those really expensive exploratory missions, AI is going to be transformational and already is in many ways in accelerating our exploration and use of space, which, in my view anyway, is going to be very good or potentially very good for the planet. What can space travel do for AI? Well, as all of you know, it's all about the data. And a lot of space travel really is about collecting data. And there's a very cool company here called Planet Labs. You might want to check them out later. They're in the States. And just to give you one example of what's become possible by these new launch vehicles, they now have 200 very sophisticated Earth observation satellites in space, and they photograph every piece of our Earth every single day. About 1.5 million individual images come down every day. And they also operate hyperspectral imaging, so that in some ways is the more interesting, so that the cameras can see what we can't see, which allows us to take opportunities and get ahead of issues. And their commitment was to be making these changes visible through open platform, accessible, and then actionable. So for example, because Google Earth is great, but the images are way out of date by the time you see them. By being able to image the same spot every day, you can actually tell where illegal fishing is going on, where illegal forestry is going on. You can look at what's happening with the LA fires or other natural disasters or man-made disasters. There's incredible implications for security. So this is just one thing that, powered by AI, this incredible platform is changing the world.